Welcome, everybody, to Something to Talk About from the Bainbridge Island Senior Community Center. We're sponsored by Fieldstone Memory Care of Bainbridge Island. Fieldstone offers compassionate care at Rolling Bay, and you can tour their apartments there by calling 360-689-4314. I'd also like to acknowledge that the Senior Center is on the ancestral homeland of the Coast Salish people, specifically our neighbors in the Suquamish tribe, and we are grateful for their hospitality, and we honor them. Today, we're going to be joined by Kitsap County Assessor Phil Cook. Phil, I asked you to come by today because of the recent updated property assessments, probably no surprise to you. And I thank you very much for taking the time to join us.
No, well, Reed, thank you for the invitation, and thank you everybody for participating. Not surprisingly, a lot of people have been contacting our office as of late this summer with regards to the change of values. There was even a newspaper article today, maybe it was yesterday, in the Kitsap Sun about the change of value, or the strength of the housing market in Kitsap as a whole. So
yes,
and
that was, I think it was in today's paper, and it mentioned, it was quoting real estate officials. And so there's obviously there's some connection between the work you do and the work that happens out in the market, but it's not lockstep.
It's not, and we are a great, the work our office does is we're a great indicator of what has happened. We're not good at telling you what is happening or what's going to happen. So we analyze the data. The change of value notice that property owners received in June was a determination of value based off the market activity throughout 2021. It doesn't take into consideration 2022. So I've got a few slides that I'm going to share with everybody that walks you through some of this stuff. And then I've got a bunch of tools on our website that I'd like to share and show you all some of that information as well. We have a couple of short videos that explain the difference between market value and assessed value, and then we have another one that explains how Washington State property taxes work. Those are available on our website, so they're available for public consumption. But and I'll show you where they are on the website. So as this recording is shared, anybody that wants to go back to that information, they'll have the ability, they'll know right where it is. We try to keep it easily accessible, but sometimes navigating the website can get a little confusing.
Well, if you're watching this later on YouTube, I'll put the links down in the description box down below, or we'll share them in the chat here. Can I just ask you, before we get started, when our property assessment goes up, can we absolutely count on our taxes going up when the bill comes out?
Not necessarily. So there's a lot that goes into it. We're looking at the total markets. So you have to remember that your assessed value is something that is simply used as a mechanism for tax distribution. So if everybody's assessed value went up 20%, that doesn't mean necessarily that your bill's going up 20%. But if your home read went up 20%, but Chris's home only went up 3%, then you're going to see a tax shift, and you're going to pick up more of the burden of the overall tax obligation. So property taxes, we calculate value on a mass level. So we're doing the entire county. There's about 120,000 parcels within Kitsap County. And we have a staff of 13 appraisers that analyze all the sales activity and what's going on, what are the trends. And then we are also required to physically inspect all parcels at least once every 6 years. And that's just simply for the purpose of validating the data we have on record and making sure that we have all the characteristics of the property up to date. So property changes, people build things, they tear down things, they remodel, whatnot. And so that all plays a part in impacting value. Washington State says that we're to value all property at 100% of market value. Now, how we do that is, it can be interesting because we're looking at, as I said earlier, at past. So we're determining that value. The notice you received in June was our determination of value as of January 1st of this year. studying the sales activity throughout 2021. So when you already received that notice, it's 6 months old. And that value will be used for calculating 2023 property taxes. So by the time that we get around to 2023 property taxes and the Treasurer's Office sends out tax bills, it's based off of assessed values that are already about 14 months old. So we're a great trailing indicator of what's happened in the market. We're not a good indicator of what is happening or what's going to happen in the market, but we do study it exclusively to see what's going on. And so, and it's quite interesting because you have pockets of specific neighborhoods around the county that change at different percentages and at different rates than other areas. It just really, it's a fascinating study to see what's going on throughout the county, because what's going on in rural Seebeck is not the same as Bainbridge Island to downtown Bremerton and to Port Orchard and so forth. So it's interesting. Now, the other piece to assessed value you have to remember, as I mentioned, them being a mechanism for tax distribution, is that there are currently 40 different taxing districts in Kitsap County. And that means there's the state, there's all the school districts, there are the fire districts, the cities, the ports, the library districts, the public utility district, and so forth. And they are required to approve a budget and approve the amount that they want to tax in the following year. And they have to send that to our office so that we can validate that those taxing districts have the legal authority to collect what they're requesting. So there are certain rules and laws in place that limit the amount a taxing district can collect. So for example, a regular taxing district is allowed to, you always hear the term about the 1% increase. Well, the 1% increase is applicable to the taxing districts to each one of them. So if a fire district is collecting $100 for a simple, easy number, so I can do the math in my head, the following year, they can collect $101 without a vote of the public. If they want to increase beyond that, it has to be voter approved. So you'll see like fire districts will often reach out to the voters. School districts will ask for money for enrichment levies or technology levies or whatever it may be. Bainbridge Island, the voters approved the Parks District for a levy lid lift for this year. And so every district has a means and ability to ask the voters for additional funds. The state, we've seen huge increases in the state the last 5 years because they had to address the McCleary lawsuit, which stated that the state was not amply funding public education, that K-12 education. So they had to come up with a mechanism to be able to fund that. And so they increased their portion of the property taxes. And so from there, the taxing districts all submit their budget requests, their taxing requests to our office, usually around October, November. And then we go through, validate that they have that legal authority to collect it. And at that point, we know what the total assessed value is for each district as well as the county as a whole, because we've already sent that out to all of you like we did in June. And then from there, we can calculate out what the rates will be for each one of those. And then from there, it's just math of putting it all together into one complete pie that gets sent out in February.
So when you say budget, when you talk about budget-based taxation, what you're saying is that the entities need to that are taxing us need to come up with a budget, and then you distribute that tax based on the work that your office has done as in assessing.
Yeah, we provide the total assessed value for the taxing district, so they know what the total assessed value is. They come up with a dollar amount of how much they want to tax for their budgets. And then it becomes just simple math of dividing one into the other to come up with what the rate would be per thousand of assessed values. And as long as that rate doesn't exceed their statutory limits, then they're okay. So we have to look at what the voters' requests are, and in Kitsap, about depending on where you're on the county, 29 to 36% of the property taxes are voter approved. And that 29 to 36% actually only includes the separately voter approved items. It does not include levy lid lifts where someone asks for like more money for the fire district or more money for the parks, metropolitan parks on Bainbridge Island. We don't take that into that account for percentages. If I were to guess, I would actually say when you count levy lid lifts, we're probably closer to 50% of property taxes that have been voter approved over time. So what I'd like to do is I'm going to cover a lot of this again throughout some of my slides, but I want to show you some things of what's going on in the market so you can get an idea on that. And then I want to talk about some of our exemption programs, particularly our senior citizen disabled persons exemption. And then I just have a few of those videos that will explain some of this in about 4 to 5 minutes and show you all where that is. So if you like, I'd like to attempt to share my screen. And this is really my kind of standard slide presentation that I use for different community groups and so forth. But it's always, I'm really big on consistency, and I like to make sure our message stays consistent with no matter which group we're speaking to. So I always try to show this because that helps to keep me on track. Make sure I don't miss something. So purpose of our office, establish all assessed value on all real and business personal property throughout the county. And then we use that, as I mentioned earlier, for tax distribution. We do maintain property records. So anytime a home or property sells, changes ownership, or, excuse me, I got a little tickle in my throat that doesn't want to go away. But every time someone wants to change their property, and maybe two properties decide to do a boundary line adjustment or something, maybe they segregate a property into multiple parcels, whatever, that all goes through our office, and we maintain those records. And then, as I mentioned earlier, we do work with all the taxing districts, and then we administer a variety of exemptions that are put forth by that have been approved by the state legislature. So our senior nonprofit, destroyed property, remodel, and then we have farm and ag, and designated forest land. So this is what's going on here and now in Kitsap County, and I'll show you where this information is on our website, but this is the county as a whole. This is just the average sales of a single family residence. So this does not include mobile homes, does not include condominiums or townhomes. This is just single family residences. And so you can see at the bottom of the housing market in Kitsap County around 2011, we were just around 284,000 was the average sales price. But through the end of last year is about 612,000. 612,000 is the average sales price of a home. And so far year to date, and that's through May of this year, we're up to 652,000. And then down here just shows the number of sales that have happened. This number looks extremely low for this year, but that's because it's only data through May. And we all know that the normal buying season are those later spring and summer months. So this will bump up quite a bit here in the coming months, the number of sales. So this is a question I'm asked often is why has our market been so strong? And I think it plays into a few key points here. We've had some historically low interest rates. There's a gentleman in my office who has a 1.625% interest rate. I mean, it's just incredibly low. We've seen that change a lot in the last couple of months where interest rates have ticked back up, but they're still, when you look at the overall historical trend, they're still on the low side, even in the 5% range. Limited housing. There's just not enough housing to keep up with the demand of people that want to live in Kitsap. We are seeing a lot of, I don't know if you guys, how often you guys drive around the county, but when I drive around, I'm seeing a lot of out-of-state license plates, far more so than I've seen in the past, most notably California license plates. And they're not military people. You can usually kind of get an idea of a military person when they're in a car. And these are not military people. So I think we're getting a lot of out-of-staters coming here. And the data is actually showing us that about 37% of all purchases in Kitsap County are people coming over from King County. So that one third of all your purchases are from out of the area or more, or one third from King County alone. And then the rest are also from out of area, but are also locals. It's simple economics. It's supply and demand. And, when there's a limited supply and there's a strong demand, prices go up. I think construction challenges I've got noted here. The timing, the requirements to get building permits, and then the associated costs of construction for materials and labor have gone up considerably in recent times. And so, that plays into a part of creating enough housing, but then also the price points for that housing. And then circling back, just high desirability. I've always thought that Kitsap was kind of the diamond in the rough, and people I think are discovering that, especially through COVID, when they realized they could work from home, and they're like, well, why wouldn't I want to as long as I have high-speed internet, I can work anywhere. Why would I not want to live in a place that's far more affordable, like Kitsap County versus some of the areas of King County where there's a lot more traffic and a lot more people, and it's just more expensive. So assessed values. I've already mentioned this, but we'll just kind of go over it again here real quick. So the notice of value was mailed on June 2nd. So you guys should have received those around June 4th or June 5th is when they should have arrived. That value was as of January 1st of this year. So when you received it, it was nearly 6 months old already. And that was based off sales activity from January 1 of last year through December 31st of last year. And then most importantly is anybody who disagrees with the assessed value, first and foremost, make sure you file an appeal with the Board of Equalization. You have a 60-day window from the date of those assessed values. So you have till August 5th to file that appeal. We also would encourage you to reach out to our office so that we can verify that we have all the characteristics of the property current and up to date. Maybe there's something we're not aware of and we need to make an adjustment. We're more than happy to do that. But we have to have good communication with the public, and we rely on property owners to advocate for themselves and to reach out to us and let us know. That's one of the reasons why we have so much of the information about your property available on parcel details for viewing, so that you can see what information we have on record for your specific property. And that way, if there's a mistake, let us know so we can just, fix that mistake. And then if there is a mistake and we can come to a resolution, you can cancel the board appeal, but don't miss that opportunity to have your, hearing and have that opportunity to be heard about your concerns with regards to the value. So that's why I make sure that August 5th date is coming up quickly. So this is our valuation timeline. And this is kind of just a visual of what I've just told you about. So the 2022 value assessment date for taxes payable in 2023, but we're looking at those sales, through 2021. We're going to send you that notice here in June. And then that's going to be used for when the Treasurer's Office sends out tax bills in February of next year. And then the first half taxes are due in April. So you can kind of see there on the visual with the dates. The assessed value is definitely a trailing indicator as to what's going on. So now that, I like to relate it as think of it as like a roller coaster. The actual here and now, the actual market is your front car of that roller coaster. And the back car of the roller coaster is the assessed value. And so both cars are going to see the same inclines and declines. They're going to track the same course, but they're just going to do it at different times. That back car is just on a roller coaster, a few seconds behind. Well, we're a few months to a year and a half or so behind what's actually happening. So when you look at the overall market, that's really the big difference there. Where that really comes into frustration for most property owners is when the market is dropping and their value is less than what we have it assessed for. But we haven't seen that since 2008, 2009, and hopefully we don't see that anytime soon, because it's a conundrum. Whereas the market values are dropping faster than and are lower than the assessed values, but we have to adhere to this timeline to maintain the consistency year after year. So where do your property taxes go? So this is sorry. Okay, now I'm messing up. I dared to touch a button on my mouse. So you can see here, now this is not specific to just Bainbridge Island. This is not specific to any one of your homes. This is a breakdown of the county as a whole. So everybody pays into the state general fund. Everybody pays into schools, but those are different rates because different school districts have different voter approved pieces. Same with the fire districts and so forth. But this is a fairly good breakdown. Not everybody lives in a city. Obviously, if you're on Bainbridge Island, you do. So this is just a countywide average. So you can see, though, when we add up the state general, which, as I mentioned earlier, is supposed to be allocated for K-12 education, that's 28% of your property taxes. And then the local schools, on average, collect about 27%. So between the two, you've got about 55 to 56% across the county of your property taxes that is going to fund K-12 education. The next largest portion of the pie is fire districts. Now, as I mentioned earlier, they're not all created equal. Some fire districts have voters that are far more generous than others, but on average, countywide, it equals about 16% of your property taxes. And then the next chunk is the county. So the county, 8% of your property district funds the county. And that, when I say fund the county, that 8% means public safety, the sheriff's office, law and justice, prosecutor's office, the jail system. That also funds county general operations, like the treasurer's office and our office, the clerk's office and so forth. And just those general operations of the county, it represents 8% of your tax bill. Then you also have the road fund. So that's for unincorporated Kitsap County would pay into the road fund, and that's to maintain the county roads. So on Bainbridge Island, you don't pay into that. You pay a city of Bainbridge Island tax instead. You do not pay into the road fund. And then cities, you can see here on average countywide, it's about 5.78%. And then we've got the library district, metro parks, which is Bainbridge Island, the port districts, and the public utility districts. So you can kind of see a breakdown of where all the money goes. So oftentimes we get people that are mad, they get their change of value, and then they say, well, the county just wants more money, so they've raised my value. Well, that's not how it works. And if you actually, if that were anywhere near how it works, you'd see the county only gets 8 cents of every dollar anyway. So it doesn't all go to the county, in spite of what people want to believe. Next is, I wanted to mention about our senior citizen and disabled persons exemption. So in the past, this exemption was, the income limits were laid out by the legislature when they voted to increase or change the limits. In a few years ago, I want to say it was in 2019, the legislature successfully passed a bill that would tie the income thresholds for each county to a percentage of median income for each county. And so as a result, Kitsap, based off our percentage of median income, at the time, we were adjusted from 40,000 to 48,574. And so total household income, if it's at 48,574 or below, then you, and you're 61 years of age or older or disabled, you may qualify for this exemption that could potentially reduce your property taxes. And then we have the different thresholds for income levels here. So the lower the income, the greater the exemption.
And this is all outlined in more detail on your website. Which
it is on our website, and I'll be happy to show you guys where on our website for anybody. In fact, I've got a new tool that we just rolled out quietly about a month or so ago that very specific for this program that I'd be happy to show you all if you guys would like to see it in a bit. Okay, so a couple things to know, and this is just overall stuff. The county's website changed. For those of you who used to try to get to the county, it used to be, co.kitsap.wa.us and very confusing. It's been simplified. It's now just kitsap.gov. Our appraisers are currently in the field conducting new construction inspections. We do that in the summertime. And so basically, as new houses are being built, we have to add those houses to the tax roll for the following year. so that they can be taxed. And even though we have access to all the permits from all the cities in the county, we still have to put eyes on the property and just verify that it has been built to the permits. And so sometimes you'll see people out there, our appraisers out there, putting a measuring tape on the side of the building just to confirm that it measures up to the way it was drawn up. And then, as I mentioned at the onset of the discussion, our physical inspection area, we have to physically inspect each area of the county at least once every 6 years. Last year was Bainbridge Island. And this next year we go to Area 1, which is Central Kitsap. So Seebeck through Silverdale is our next area for physical inspection. And as I mentioned, that's where we come out to a property, we literally take a look at it, make sure that it matches the information we have on record. If we have questions, we will knock on the door to ask the property owner any of the questions we might have. If they're not available, we'll leave a business card letting them know that we were there. And if we have a specific question, it might be listed on that business card so that the property owner can contact us and answer that question. Because there's a lot of things that can happen on a property that are just unknown to us. And we want to just make sure we get it correct. If you've got a problem, if your home's been destroyed recently, you get a water pipe break or something like that, well, we need to know about it because that impacts the value of the property. If you've got damage to drywall and insulation, maybe flooring and who knows what all, we can adjust that value for the following year. But there's also a destroyed property exemption that we want to make sure that the property owners are aware of. So if you have significant damage, then you can get an actual exemption while that property's been damaged until the repairs are made. When we're out doing new construction inspections, we also like to make sure people are aware that there is an exemption for remodels. As people add on to their homes or they significantly remodel the property, we do administer an exemption for the state. That's a 3-year exemption that will not include for 3 years those improvements. And then at the end of those 3 years, those improvements are added to the value. But if someone, they build an ADU and a detached garage or something along those lines, I guess garages actually don't qualify, so that's not a good example. But certain aspects of a remodel or something, we need to know about it so we can take it into consideration on there and make sure that you're directed towards the appropriate exemption to take advantage of. Okay, and then lastly is just contact information for me. So if any of you want to contact me directly, there's my email address. It's pretty simple. It's my name @kitsap.gov. And then my direct phone line is the 337-7085. If you're wanting to call the office, it's the 337-7160 number. If you want to speak to someone specific, like an exemption specialist or an appraiser or something. So I'm going to go ahead and get out of this presentation, the slide deck here, because
yeah. And can I interrupt and see if there are any questions at this point? I know you were going to show us some tools too, if you have a chance. So absolutely. So, well, I guess I'll leave that up to you guys. What would you want to keep hearing me speak for a little bit, or would you like to see a couple of? I think they're both about 5-minute long videos that are on our website. So you can watch them on your own time if you'd like, but one of them explains the difference between market value and assessed value in a little bit more detailed than what I just provided, the overview I just provided you. And then the other one is called Property Tax Basics. So it just explains to you a little more detail how property taxes are calculated. Yes, Michael.
2 questions to make sure I've understood things correctly. Number one, the requirement that you use a trailing history of actual market sales is a state law that you must obey. So there's no basis for people to go in and argue against that by saying that we were in a bubble and blah, blah. Am I basically correct about that?
Yeah, people do like to argue that it's a bubble, this and that. And it's like, well, how do we know that for sure? I understand, but that we simply look at what's going on in the market and what the sales are in your area.
Correct. But my key question is that's imposed by state law. You guys don't have any discretion over that, correct?
Correct. The timeline that we analyze, yes, is laid out.
And the second thing, as I understood it from your presentation, is that I would treat this as kind of almost that you're an agency that's processing a demand side cumulative budget. In other words, the different agencies come to you and they say, we would like to get this much money. And so let's say it adds up to 500 million, just, as randomly. Then what you do is you allocate that 500 million demand out among the different property owners, but you're simply processing the amounts requested, that the agencies are seeking, assuming they're lawful, of course, correct?
Yes and no.
Thank you.
So the taxing districts themselves, most all of them have their own commissioners that you'll have voted on, whether it's a city council, school board, fire commissioners, whatever. Those commissioners are tasked with developing a budget for the following year. That budget, in that budget, they'll come up with a number of how much they need to meet that need for that budget. They will then send that to our office saying, we want X amount of dollars. And our job is to validate that the taxing district has the legal authority to tax that much based off of statutory rate limits, based off of whatever has been voter approved and so forth. So, and we can calculate that out because, excuse me, we have the total assessed value. So in that regard, we're kind of like Switzerland. Our job is to just protect the voters, protect the public from what the taxing districts are requesting. If the taxing districts have the legal ability to collect it and the voters have approved it, well, then we will move forward with it. And then once we go through and do the math, the actual county commissioners have the final approval of approving a budget request. So they will get a resolution saying, here's taxing district A is going to tax this much, and this is the rate. And, as long as it checks out, they can do that. Once we know the total budget requests for each taxing district, then it's easy for us to go back and calculate that out and how it's distributed by the total assessed values for each taxing district. So where it's unique is, for examples like Bainbridge Island is pretty well defined. You're surrounded by water. And so your city boundaries, your school district boundaries, your fire district boundaries are all the same. But in the rest of the county, they vary. So for example, you have the city of Port Orchard has a certain jurisdictional boundary. Their fire district, South Kitsap Fire, does not have the same jurisdictional boundaries. Neither does the school district. And so all those can kind of overlap each of those districts. And so then it becomes a little bit more of a task, but in the end, it's still just basic math for each district of calculating out what that rate is for each district per thousand of assessed value.
Now, you were talking earlier about the 1% increase that is allowed in the increase in those budgets. But then you also mentioned the Parks District and how the voters approved a levy lift.
Correct.
What is it? How is that going to translate?
So a taxing district, without a vote of the public, they can increase their regular levy amounts by 1% each year. If they want to go beyond that, then it has to be voter approved. And I don't have in front of me what the like the Bainbridge Island Parks levy was in. Let's see if I can find it here real quick. If you guys can bear with me. I have the book out, but I don't have it open. But so in 2021, that's the city. Sorry, 1 minute here. Bainbridge Island Parks regular levy was 59.62 cents per thousand of assessed value. The voters approved to increase that to 75 cents per thousand. So that's what is that? Roughly about a 16-cent increase per thousand. And that's just one example. So you would take the total, your assessed value, and, let's use what seems to be a more realistic number of, say, $1 million times that 0.16 and then divide it by 1,000. And that's $162 increase using that example, just for that, not including all and the other districts.
One budget in a number of budgets that you're putting together.
Correct. Yep. So, and then that 75 cents, it actually goes beyond that though, because the 59 cents is what was being collected on the old assessed value. Then the new assessed value is higher, and that voters approved to go to 75 cents. So the spread actually becomes more, because if the assessed value the prior year was only 800,000, and then it goes to $1 million, but you go from 59 cents on 800,000, and then you get voter approved to go to 75 cents on $1 million, you can see how that it goes up significantly. You know, another example of that is here in South Kitsap, the fire district is projected to drop to $1.02 next year if they only take their 1% increase. However, they're considering going to the voters and asking them to bump their levy up to the statutory limit of $1.50. If they do that, that's about a 48-cent increase to that levy rate. So it's a significant increase in total dollars. They go from something like $15 million to about $22 million in collection. Those are real dollars that will have quite an impact on someone's property taxes the following year if the voters approve it. So, and that happens relatively regularly around the county, but especially between schools and fire districts. They oftentimes will reach out to the voters for approval of certain things. Bainbridge is actually pretty good on with their fire district. They don't tend to go to that maximum like a lot of the other districts do. But Bainbridge is a little more unique, as I said earlier on. You have a lot more assessed value. Okay, so I'm going to share with you our website and just kind of show you a few things on there. And is our website showing up? Everybody see it?
Yep.
Okay, so you can see a much younger picture of me. That was a lot less. I actually had darker hair then. I don't know what happened. I guess this age thing. Now it's almost all white and it's terrible, but that's all right. Okay, so this is our website.
Okay. Around here, we feel your pain.
I guess, you know, I look at the bright side. I still got hair, so I can always color if it really bothers me, but it doesn't. So this is our website, and this is and on here we will put new information of what's going on right on the front page, so you can see change of value notices, the valuation timeline, which I already shared with you, that the little flags and on the calendar. And then sales data, where you're able to go in and look at the sales of all the properties in your neighborhoods to see what's going on. Any changes to the senior exemption program. And then this is the major changes for taxes to be collected this year that came out back in January. So up here though, I want to show you a couple things. First off is the sales trends. And can you see the bar chart? Did it all show up?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So sometimes this stuff doesn't work so well when you're sharing it. So I already showed you this page in the slide presentation, but one of the neat things about this when you go into it is if you click on Bainbridge Island, the information will auto adjust for Bainbridge Island specifically. So you can see the low in 2011 was 555,000. And then the average sales price you can see last year was 1.43, and this year it's a little over 1.6.
The numbers went up a little bit there.
Yeah, they're still going up. They're still trending up. You can see the count of sales. So last year on Bainbridge Island, there were 402 sales of single family homes. And this year so far, we're at 108. But remember, that's just through May. That does not include June or anything in July as of yet. This looks a little misleading. It's a quirk we've discovered in this particular piece of software. This is showing an average sales price for all the years combined. So for the school district, the average value on Bainbridge. So just a couple other tools I'm just going to show on our website. I know we're coming up near our break. I can keep going if you guys would like. Otherwise, I'll just show you where some stuff is. And you're more than welcome to watch it on your own time.
That'd be great.
I've shown you parcel details and the sales trend. We go under services. You can find out about property tax relief programs. So here's our senior citizen exemption, as well as we tie in the appropriate law. So the RCW that associates with some of these exemptions, so that you can confirm that what we're telling you is what the law states. But if you want to go into, like, say, the senior exemption, here's some further excuse me, information about a breakdown of how these programs work. Over here are the appropriate laws for these specific programs, as well as highlights of program changes for this year. And then this is our secret thing that we've just rolled out a couple months ago. We haven't even advertised it to the public yet because we're really, as people are discovering it, we're relying on them to kind of be an extra set of testers to make sure we have this set up properly. But we have now an online tool for application of the exemption. And what's unique about this is it's not just a fillable form for you to fill out. It actually asks you specific questions. You fill it out, and based off those answers, it asks you the next appropriate question. So you don't have to go through and read and interpret all these questions that may not even be applicable to you, to your specific situation based off your income and your housing needs. So the application will kind of navigate based off of how you answer the questions. And then in the end, it'll provide you links to upload the appropriate documentation to a secured location on our server so that we can go ahead and qualify you for the exemption. Therefore, you don't have to use the mail service and mail it to us or fax it or come down here to apply. We can do it over the internet. So it so far is panning out to be a huge time saver for the public. And we have a couple of little back end quirks we've had to kind of get resolved on some things, but so far so good. So that's
like a very useful tool.
It's very useful and it's simple. And I would actually tell you all, if you even just want to try to go apply, even if you know you're not going to qualify, you can just put in there test application per fill it out. You can submit it. Send me an email if you don't want to submit it, and just let me know if you have any input about the simplicity of it and or suggestions for how we can make it better. Because we're looking at using this same technology and this same model to roll out for some of our other exemption programs, because our goal really is to try to make it as easy for people as possible to apply for some of these programs. Okay, so whoops, we were under services. There's some other information on here if you want to learn about levy process or residential appraisal and how some of that's done, information there. Under resources, we have our assessment books, and these books, which, it probably won't pop up. Well, maybe it does. Can you guys see a PDF?
No, we're just seeing links.
Yeah, okay, I'm not gonna, so these are prior years of property tax and assessed value information. But if you click on these, they'll pull up a PDF. So you can see we go back to 2004, all that information is available. A lot of information. In fact, I tell you, if you really have a hard time sleeping at night, print one of those out and start reading through it and you'll probably doze off pretty quick. Okay. And then lastly, we have this section right here, which is our education outreach page. Here's that first video I was telling you about. It's about 5 minutes long that explains Washington State property tax basics. And literally 5 minutes, and it walks you through a video tutorial with visuals explaining how the tax system in Washington State works. It is simplistic, but we're trying to, just provide that general overview for people that kind of provide that aha moment. We also have another one that explains the market value versus assessed value. And so for those, we were talking earlier about the timeline and the chart that shows based off of when we did, the assessed values that we just sent out are based off of what time of the year and so forth. So that's explained in this. And then information regarding the senior exemption and the changes to it, as well as some of the prior school levy changes and so forth. So this is the one that talks about the McCleary lawsuit and the changes to why there was that significant increase to the state levy and when that passed. And so outside of that, I mean, that's
an exhaustive overview of some of the.
That's a lot of information. Yeah.
We'll get back to you after we've watched it all.
Yeah, there you go. I'm just going to stop sharing there. And yeah, please feel free to navigate our website. If you have any questions, you guys have my email and phone number. I'm happy to help guide you through some of that stuff. But I rely heavily on feedback from the public. in knowing what to put on our website. You know, we want to make sure we're as transparent as possible about our process and put it all out there so people are aware and have access to the tools and the information that they want, so they know what's going on. So yeah, questions.
Hi, when do you next assess Bainbridge Island?
With physical inspections?
Well, I don't know, for tax purposes.
An update's done every year. And once every 6 years, we do physical inspections where we actually will look at the whole island as a whole and put eyes on each property. But then in the off years, we do a statistical analysis based off the market and what has happened. Because we do have access to all the sales data because it comes through our office, but then and our staff spends a lot of time studying the sales and the market as a whole so that we can make the appropriate adjustments. So we have,
Sorry. So what qualifies as an additional asset to a home?
well, it depends.
If you're making if you're remodeling a little bit, just a little bit. But
Yeah,
what do you count as that person has done this or that?
Yeah, if
What
you
do you count?
you know, like if someone doesn't regular maintenance and they've replaced a roof, that doesn't add any value because you had a roof and you're just doing normal, upkeep to maintain the house in the condition it's in. You know, now if the roof were really bad or the new roof is just, beyond the norm, we might make an adjustment for that, but it's kind of rare. It's not really something we're looking at. We're looking for significant changes. You
Like
didn't
solar
have
panels, like
Solar
adding
panels-
solar panels?
solar panels can impact. We don't have a lot of definitive data that shows precisely how much value they add, but
But isn't that a good thing?
it can be. It will show up when you go to sell the property. It's going to make it far more appealing to people.
But why
Um,
should you be charged for doing an improvement like that?
Well, if you sell the home and you're able to get an extra $30,000 because it's got solar panels, then obviously it added value.
Okay, thank
But
you.
if you had no deck on the back of your home and you added a 2,000 square foot deck, that's going to add value to the property. You built a detached garage that had additional living space, that's going to add value. And those are the kind of things we're looking for. Your regular wear and tear types of things, you replace carpet, you had the wood floors refinished, those were already there. And so if you take out wood and put tile, does that add a significant value? Not really. It's still flooring. So if it had any impact at all, if we were even aware of it, it would be minimal. It's the major stuff that we're looking for. Remember, like I said earlier, we're not coming into your house. So if you've made improvements inside and we aren't aware of it, well, guess what? We're not aware of it. So we can't take that into account. So
And then the market forces as well, do they play in on a yearly basis?
absolutely, it's big time. Yeah, that is what we have. I have 13 appraisers on staff, on a staff of 24. 13 of them are appraisers, and that's their job, is to they're out physically inspecting property, they're validating information, our data on record, as well as studying the market, what's going on.
Phil, I want to thank you very much for your time today. And as you said, you left some information about how to contact you if there are any follow-up questions. Appreciate you taking time out of your day to meet with us.
Yeah, in fact, just as a reminder, it's just my name, Phil Cook, at kitsap.gov.